Hello students, you all are welcome in class 7 science chapter 14 Wind and Storm. Students, this is part 2. In part 1 we have studied what is air pressure, atmospheric pressure. We have discussed some activities related to the proving of all these things, and we have also studied about the instruments which are used to measure the wind speed and wind direction. Now in this section, part 2, we are going to discuss about some natural disasters and the precautions which can be taken for these natural disasters. So students, first of all we should know how the air moves. The air moves, as you can see, from high pressure zone to low pressure zone or of air. Okay, from high pressure zone means where the pressure of air is more to the low pressure. Always when a thing is moving, it always moves from a region of high pressure to low pressure. Suppose there are two tanks connected, one tank is full and one is empty, and you connect the tanks. So obviously the water from the full tank will flow towards the empty tank. In the same way, air from the region of high pressure, it flows to the low pressure zone. Now from high pressure zone, the air rushes towards the low pressure zone to fill the gap. Thus, greater is the pressure difference, greater will be the speed of the wind, and vice versa. Vice versa means if greater is the pressure difference, greater will be the speed of wind. If lesser is the pressure difference, lesser will be the speed of wind. Now, what are the causes of wind movement? Pressure difference in the air is caused by the differential heating. Differential heating means uneven heating of the land. We know when the sun rises, some areas of the land they get heated more and some areas get less heated. Now, the areas where the land gets more heated, the air above the land, it also gets heated up and it becomes warm, and the warm air rises up. Why it rises up? Because it becomes lighter. We have discussed it in our lecture number 1 or part 1 of this chapter. Now when this warm air rises up, this creates an area of low pressure below the rising air. Now the air is rising up, it means a vacuum is created, so pressure becomes low. The area of low pressure is quickly filled in by the cooler air from the surrounding. Means when suppose here is low pressure area and the surrounding area is with high pressure of air. What happens? The air from the surrounding, it rushes to fill the space in the low pressure area. That is how the wind movement is created on the earth. इस तरीके से movement होती है किसकी? Wind की. Thus, differential heating of air creates pressure difference which makes the wind movement. Okay. Now, why are wind currents formed? Wind currents are formed due to uneven heating of Earth's surface between the equator and poles. Okay, we know the equatorial region receives more sunlight as compared to the polar regions. Therefore, the air near the Earth's surface in the equatorial regions get heated up and rises up. This process creates low pressure regions. Okay, now cold air from the high pressure regions on either side of the equator up to the latitude of 30 degree, it flows into the low pressure regions near the equator. Now you have learned in social studies the latitudes 0 degree, 30 degree in this way. Okay, so what happens? 0 degree is equator. Equator gets more sunlight, land gets heated up, the air above it gets heated up and it rises up. When the air rises up in the equatorial region, this creates a low pressure belt. The cold air from the high pressure regions on either side of the equator up to the latitude of 30 degree, it flows into the low pressure regions near the equator. Now, the warm air which rises up cools. Why? Because when it goes up above, there is low temperature. It cools and it sinks down in the regions of latitude nearly 30 degree north and south of the equator. That is the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. As the cool air sinks, this area becomes high pressure region again, and this cycle continues for the other latitudes also. This cycle goes and goes and goes on. Okay. Now, what is Coriolis force? This Coriolis force is actually an effect whereby a mass moving in a rotating system. We know that the earth is rotating. Okay? The mass means this earth is the mass. It is moving in a rotating system and it experiences a force. And the direction of the force is perpendicular to the direction of motion and the axis of rotation. Means the force which is acting, it is perpendicular to the direction of motion as well as the axis of rotation. Due to the effect of the rotation of the earth, the wind flowing in the northern hemisphere of the earth, they bends towards its right, and the wind in the southern hemisphere, they bends towards its left with respect to an observer on the ground. Suppose you are standing on the ground, due to this Coriolis force, you will observe that the wind flowing in the northern hemisphere means above the equator, they bends towards its right, and the wind in the southern hemisphere, they bends towards its left. This is due to the origin of a force which is called as Coriolis force, which is caused by the rotation of Earth about its own axis. The direction of Coriolis force in the northern hemisphere is towards right and the southern hemisphere is towards the left. This is important. You must remember the direction of Coriolis force in the northern and the southern hemisphere. Now coming to the first natural disaster, that is thunderstorms. As the name is suggesting, thunder means बहुत तेज कड़कड़ाहट से, and storms means आंधी तूफान. So what is a thunderstorm? Actually, a thunderstorm is a turbulent weather condition and it is formed by lightning and thunder. Thunderstorms, whenever these thunderstorms come, they are usually accompanied by strong winds and heavy rain. जब भी thunderstorms आता है, thunderstorms में mainly lightning और खूब जैसे कहते हैं ना बिजली चमकती है और बादल गरजते हैं, गड़गड़ाहट, that is thunder. Okay, और जब thunderstorms होता है तो उसमें बाद में तेज हवाएं और बहुत तेज बारिश भी होती है. Okay, and this turbulent means very violent. Now, how do the thunderstorms occur? You can see this is a thunderstorm, this lightning and the you can see it. Okay. Now, thunderstorms result from the rapid upward movement of warm moist air. Okay. These thunderstorms result from the rapid upward movement of warm moist air. They can occur inside warm moist air masses and at fronts. As the warm moist air moves upward, it cools, condenses and forms cumulonimbus clouds that can reach heights of over 20 km. As the rising air reaches its dew point, water droplets and ice form. Dew point means the point where this water changes into ice, and it begins falling and the long distance through the clouds towards the earth's surface. Usually these thunderstorms are in summers when it is warm, especially in monsoon seasons when it is warm and the air is moist. Okay, as the droplets fall, they collide with other droplets and become larger. The falling droplets create a downdraft of air that spreads out at the Earth's surface and it causes strong winds associated commonly with thunderstorms. Clear to all of you? ये जब warm moisture ऊपर जाती है, वहाँ ऊपर warm है तो it will cool, it condenses and there it forms kind of type of clouds which are known as cumulonimbus clouds. And these cumulonimbus clouds, they can reach heights of over 20 kilometers. जैसे जैसे राइजिंग एयर मीन्स जो हवा हल्की है ऊपर जा रही है, it reaches its dew point. These water droplets and ice they form. Okay, water droplets बनती है, ice बनती है, and they begin falling the long distance through the clouds towards the earth's surface. जब ये नीचे आ रही होती है, they collide with each other droplets and they become larger. And these falling droplets create a downdraft of air that spreads out at the earth's surface and causes strong winds associated commonly with thunderstorms. Now, what are the precautions to be taken during thunderstorms? अभी जब आंधी तूफान आ रहा है, thunderstorms है, तो आपको क्या क्या precautions लेने चाहिए? Number one, if you are inside your house or in any building, stay inside till the thunderstorm stops. अगर आप अपने घर के अंदर हैं तो आपको घर में रहना ही है. मान लीजिए आप कहीं गए हुए हैं और एकदम से आपको लगे आंधी तूफान आ रहा है, थंडरस्टॉर्म आ रहा है, तो आप सोचे कि हम जल्दी से अपने घर पहुंच जाएंगे, फटाफट निकल जाएं. तो ऐसा नहीं करना चाहिए. आप जहां कहीं पर भी हैं, जिस भी बिल्डिंग में, यू शुड स्टे इनसाइड देयर. ओके, एंड व्हेन द थंडरस्टॉर्म सबसाइड्स, मीन जब थंडरस्टॉर्म खत्म हो जाए तब आप अपने घर में वापस आइए. ओके, so if you are inside your house and in any building, stay inside till the thunderstorm stops. Now second, if you are outside, अब by chance आप कहीं बाहर हैं, तो you should not hold umbrella and walk during thunderstorm. तो कोशिश आपको यही करनी है कि आप आसपास कहीं पर भी शेल्टर ले लें. कहीं पर कोई घर दिख रहा हो, कोई बिल्डिंग हो, आप उसके अंदर चले जाएं. और अगर फिर भी पॉसिबल नहीं है तो आपको उस टाइम पे क्या नहीं करना है, एक तो अम्ब्रेला होल्ड नहीं करना है थंडरस्टॉर्म में, और वॉक नहीं करना है. ओके, नंबर 3, डू नॉट टेक अ शेल्टर अंडर अ ट्री. अब मान लीजिए वही बताया जैसे सेकेंड स्टेप में आप कहीं बाहर है, तो आप कहीं पर भी शेल्टर लेना है तो वही इनसाइड यानी बिल्डिंग है, आपको पेड़ के नीचे नहीं खड़ा होना है. क्यों? as it creates an easy path for the discharge of electricity. Okay, अगर आप किसी टॉल ट्री के नीचे खड़े हो जाएंगे तो क्या होगा, जब बिजली गिरती है तो वो टॉलर ऑब्जेक्ट्स पे जल्दी गिरती है, तो it will create an easy path for the discharge of electricity, and below that tree you are standing, so you will also get affected. And number 4, if you are sitting inside a vehicle, do not come out of the vehicle. अगर आप किसी व्हीकल में हैं तो उससे बाहर बिल्कुल नहीं आने की जरूरत है जब तक कि थंडरस्टॉर्म रुक ना जाए. क्लियर? नाउ नेक्स्ट इज साइक्लोन्स. व्हाट आर साइक्लोन्स? अ साइक्लोन इज अ लो प्रेशर एरिया surrounded by a high pressure region of swirling air. Means बीच में लो प्रेशर एरिया है और swirling air means एयर चक्कर लगा रही है बहुत जोर जोर से, हाई प्रेशर रीजन है. एंड द सेंटर ऑफ द साइक्लोन इज कॉल्ड इट्स आई. ओके, द आई ऑफ द साइक्लोन हैज द लोएस्ट प्रेशर एंड इट इज अ काम एंड क्लाउडलेस एरिया. जैसे कि साइक्लोन दिखता है, आपने प्रीवियस वीडियो में देखा था, पार्ट 1 में, देयर वाज अ साइक्लोन. तो साइक्लोन का जो सेंटर होता है उसको आई कहते हैं, और आई पर सबसे कम प्रेशर होता है, बहुत काम होता है, मीन्स बहुत शांत, और वहाँ कोई क्लाउड्स नहीं होते. इट इज अ वेरी क्वाइट एरिया, वेरी काम एरिया. ओके, cyclones are called by different names in different countries. In America it is called as a hurricane. Okay, and in Japan and Philippines it is known as typhoon. Okay, now you can see this is a cyclone. How are they formed? The fast moving air towards a center, usually with heavy rain, is known as a cyclone. Wind direction, wind speed, humidity and temperature together creates the cyclone. ये सब मिलकर cyclones बनाते हैं. When water vapor in the clouds, it cools down, it releases heat. Whenever water vapor condenses, cools down, this process of condensation it results in the release of heat. But what happens? This heat which is released, it warms the air around the clouds. अब वो clouds के चारों आसपास जो भी चारों तरफ की air है उसको warm करेगा. The warm air rises up and creates a low pressure zone. This low pressure zone is quickly filled in by the cooler air from the surrounding. And this creates a system in which the center is having very low pressure and is surrounded by wind moving around it. The wind from the surroundings moves in a circular fashion towards the center and give rise to cyclone. You can see in this picture this moving cyclone. This is moving like this. The center of this cyclone is known as eye. Okay, and this eye is very calm area. Calm means यहाँ पर कुछ हलचल नहीं होती, low pressure होता है, बहुत शांत होता है. Now safety measures to be taken during cyclones. Stay tuned to the local radio for updated news regarding thunderstorms and cyclones. जो local radios हैं आपको timely updated news करते रहते हैं कि thunderstorms और cyclones के लिए कि आपको क्या करना है क्या नहीं करना है. Okay, so you should always stay tuned to the local radio. Do not use gas or electrical appliances which have been in flood water without checking for safety. अब जब cyclones आते हैं तो बहुत flood भी आता है. Flood में अगर कोई हमारा electrical appliance या gas जो है वो flooded हो गई है तो उसको बिना चेक किए सेफ्टी के लिए we should not use them. Do not go outside your house and do not walk through flood water. एक तो आपको घर के बाहर नहीं जाना है, ऊपर से flood water में नहीं जाना, because flood water में maybe there are some aquatic animals like crocodile, snakes may be there which may harm you. And always keep drinking waters separately because the water sources get contaminated during the floods. Okay. Now coming to tornadoes. Now what are tornadoes? A tornado is a violently rotating column of air that extends from the clouds to the ground. It is violently rotating column of air that extends from the clouds to the ground. Means it is also very fast moving and it appears as funnel shaped cloud moving very fast. You can see in this figure also it's a funnel shape, and it is moving very fast. These tornadoes can appear from any direction. They can completely destroy even the strongest buildings. They can uproot trees, damage lives and hurls objects through the air. जब ये टॉर्नाडोज आते हैं तो इनके रास्ते में जो कुछ आता है कहते हैं उसे अपने लपेट में लेकर उड़ा लेते हैं. uproot trees means ट्रीज को भी जड़ से उखाड़ लेते हैं, बिल्डिंग्स को भी उखाड़ देते हैं, लाइव्स मीन्स कोई भी एनिमल ह्यूमन बीइंग इनके अगर रास्ते में आ जाता है तो उन सबको वो इतनी तेजी से लेकर दूसरी जगह पर फेंक देते हैं. The intensity of tornado is measured in Fujita scale. Okay, it's Fujita scale with ratings between F0 that causes minimal damage and F5 that causes maximum damage. The speed of the wind in a tornado is almost 500 km per hour. And the tornadoes that are formed in water are called as water spouts. Okay. Now coming to the precautions to be taken during tornadoes. A tornado can engulf objects that I told you from the surface of the earth due to low pressure inside and throws these back causing destruction. Means engulf means निगल लेता है. टोर्नाडो जब आता है तो वो अपने रास्ते में जितनी चीजें आती है उसको निगलता चला जाता है और दूर ले जाके उनको फेंक देता है, which causes a huge destruction. So therefore we should follow these precautions. Avoid opening windows and doors of the house. Occupy the ground floor and small rooms in your house. Means जब टोर्नाडो की अनाउंसमेंट है या आपको पता है टोर्नाडो आने वाला है तो खिड़की दरवाजे सब बंद रखें। कोशिश ये करें कि आप जिस भी बिल्डिंग में उसके ग्राउंड फ्लोर पर हो और अपने रूम के छोटे छोटे कमरों में रहें। सपोज यू आर आउटसाइड और ट्रैवलिंग इन अ व्हीकल। मान लीजिए आप बाहर हैं, अब घर में नहीं है, आप कहीं बाहर जा रहे हैं या व्हीकल में हैं, तो व्हाट यू हैव टू डू इज you have to get out of it quickly and protect yourself by lying close to the ground, by keeping your fingers interlocked, closing the ears and neck. तो आपको क्या करना है, फौरन उस व्हीकल से निकल के आना है and you have to sit like this as is shown in this picture. Okay, you have to protect yourself by lying close to the ground. You can see they are close to the ground, keeping your fingers interlocked. These are interlocked fingers. You can see, closing the ear and the neck. Clear to all of you? थंडरस्टॉर्म में व्हीकल से बाहर नहीं आना है, व्हीकल के अंदर ही बैठना है जब तक थंडरस्टॉर्म सबसाइड ना कर जाए। और टोर्नाडो में अगर टोर्नाडो आ रहा है और व्हीकल में आप, तो फौरन आप व्हीकल से बाहर निकल के इस तरीके से आप बैठ जाए। Now that's all for this chapter, Wind and Storms. I hope you all understood. Keep watching, keep learning. Thank you very much. God bless you.